More Science-mancy on AI. The article today is "In AI is Bigger Better?" And this is from Nature Magazine, March 9th, January 2023. And the first half of the article is great. It's just about the different models out there and what's what, and really good rundown. The second half, though, is what I really wanted to share, because it's a couple of things about energy and the human brain that doesn't get talked about, I feel like, enough. The first thing is the problem of scale and how big some of these models are getting. People aren't talking about how much energy this costs, because Google reported that training its large language model, PaLM, took 3.4 gigawatt hours over about 2 months. And so that's how much energy 300 US households consume in a year. And just think about, everybody's going to be putting these into their products, even if it doesn't make any fucking sense at all. And each of them is so expensive to train. By comparison, the human brain, which is much more complicated and larger than any large language model, with 86 billion neurons and 100 trillion synaptic connections, consumes somewhere between 20 and 50 watts of power, like light bulb level. I mean, that's just amazing. And so some researchers are hoping that mimicking aspects of the brain will help neural networks become smarter, smaller, and more efficient. And one way to do that is going to be feedback loops, because the human brain and life in general is defined by negative feedback loops. They're so much more important than positive feedback loops in some ways. And almost all LLMs are about feed-forward connections. But in the human visual system, there's about 10 times more negative feedback loops than there are positive feedback loops, because the eye is constantly saying, don't pay attention to that, don't worry. The brain wiring around the eye is constantly saying, ignore this, ignore that, I understand this, I don't need more information here. And that's why it's just picking out what's interesting to us, such as, why is that guy behaving strangely on the subway? We're so good at stuff like that. What's he doing over there? What's he building in there? And so there are networks like that called recurrent neural networks that are better about negative feedback loops, but right now they're very hard to train, and we're not really used to them yet. The other thing that's different is the neurons that are used in AI are modeled as always on, but human neurons aren't like that. Human neurons are mostly quiet and use no energy and just sit there until they're needed. So that's another thing that's going to change. The last is the data input, and this is part of the slow AI movement by Timnit Gebru, who got fired by Google for being ethical, and she's talking about how we can have smaller models with cleaner, better data. And I think it's a really important part of this movement.